Hello. If you want to support us here at The Contemporary Gentleman, you can buy into our Spy series, links below. And depending on when this was recorded, we may or may not have an Instagram and or Patreon. If we do, links are below. Cheers. Hello everyone, James Donaldson here with The Contemporary Gentleman, and I'm bringing you a video on the Low-Light Innovations MH-1 housing. So why, again, this is an initial impressions video, by the way, if you couldn't tell by the title. But so a couple things, like why did I select these? Well, first and foremost, I wanted to upgrade or get upgraded to dual tube. Now again, I forgot to say in the 365 video, but all these items are provided by a third party, whether I buy it from a third party or it's on loan. So I don't have, other than a phone call and speaking to someone at Low-Light Innovations, I really have no relationship with them whatsoever. And again, James Donaldson is a fake name. So when I talk to them with either name, they don't really know what's going on. That is just all to remain, help myself remain as unbiased as possible. So getting back to it, I wanted to upgrade to dual tube. I was very interested in the DT NVS's. However, we know that they're great. They've been around a long time now in the grand scheme. So, and the interesting thing, if you're unaware about night vision is like if you're going to buy a car and you get to choose the drivetrain and the body. So maybe you want a Corvette V8 engine in a Miata, that's up to you. Maybe you want a, Ford Coyote motor in, I don't know, a Fiat. Whatever it is. The point is that you get to choose. So nothing new or exciting about the tubes. L3 Harris tubes, 18 UM. So unfilled wine phosphor, great. And the housing is where it's at. So again, this is brand new housing in the market. It's only been out for a few months. I want to say 2 maybe even. Few as that. So that was really the exciting thing. So for me, it was kind of a business move because I really wanted to put these through their paces. Also, I have an enormous Army exercise coming, which is going to be an excellent opportunity to utilize these. And I've already done some training or used them for training recently to include night vision driver's training. So I was teaching a class on that. It was great having these, great test, and they were fantastic. So the other part of that is a friend of mine told me about them, and looking at them on paper, they looked awesome. Now, paper is not everything, and one of the main things that people can glean from videos like this is, oh, they look great on paper, but they're not. Now, in this case, so far, I very much like these. I am going to go through the kind of the things I like and the gripes in this video. We'll touch on those, but overall, I really do like these a lot, and I look forward to putting them through their paces. So, getting into it. So, first off, I like the construction. It is CNC machined, done very well. Just great fit and finish, which is something you'd expect from something at this price. The material is interesting. I feel like some websites I was looking at them on in terms of vendors kind of undersold the material. Basically, they implied like aluminum and magnesium. No, it's pretty much all magnesium housing. In fact, the screws and some of the other hardware components are actually titanium, which really blows me away. I'm super impressed by that, especially at the reasonable cost of these. Like, yeah, I get it's dual tube night vision, it's expensive, but when you compare it to some of the other brands, the only thing scary is that there's not a lot of pedigree on these. But the company does have a history, a good one, and I would say. And so it's very interesting to me. Now, there are a couple aluminum parts. It is basically the battery cap and a couple components with how the battery connects. I don't believe it's the wires. I'd be very shocked if they're using aluminum wires. I'm sure they're copper like they should be. But anyway, the point is that magnesium housing. And so what's the deal with that? So magnesium is a pretty rare and expensive metal. Again, it just really impresses me the how reasonably priced they are. And brief caveat, talking to them, they basically said, they kind of have that Palmetto mentality of like, we want to make good night vision, and we want to get it out there. So hats off to them. That does seem to be true thus far. By the way, I do have some metallurgy and manufacturing background for my civilian job. So I'm not an expert, but I've got a lot of awareness as to kind of how this stuff plays out, especially bill of materials and cost and everything. So getting back to it, magnesium, you just don't see it used a lot because it can be tricky to work with. Raw magnesium will catch fire by coming into contact with water. So there's no danger of that in these. I spoke a lot with the engineers about that because they know more about magnesium than I do. And they assured me that when you're working with non-raw, so well-processed conditioned magnesium, that's not a problem whatsoever, which is believable because I don't think they would have done this if that wasn't true. Now, moving on from there, magnesium is, so like why magnesium, right? Magnesium is 40% lighter than aluminum when you have, amount versus amount, it's the same volume. So that's pretty tempting right there. Now, there's no free lunch, so one downside to magnesium is it's far more susceptible to corrosion than aluminum is. So they actually have a couple different coatings all over this thing to make sure that corrosion is not a problem. They have a stellar warranty. I'll pop it up in the video here because I forgot to look before filming. I want to say lifetime, but I could be wrong. Maybe limited lifetime. We'll see. I'm sure it's saying it right there right now, and I should just move on. So, apart from that, future versions, they're going to start Cerakoting because they can get more creative with the colors. So, there you have it as far as the kind of the build and the materials right there. Now, of course, love the articulation, right? Who doesn't like that? I do see where people are weary of it. I guess technically in the grand scheme, an articulating set of dual tube nods is not going to be as robust or maybe as sturdy as non-articulating, but I just think that's that kind of thing where some people are like, oh, well, why buy a car with more gadgets on? It's just more to go wrong. And I'm like, that's such an open-ended statement. Where do you draw the line? Like, why have a car at all? There's more to go wrong. Okay? Like, how many light bulbs do you have in your house? Well, it's more light bulbs to burn out. It's just such an asinine reason to not get something. So, it'd be different if stuff like this broke all the time, but it just doesn't. So, anyway, getting off the soapbox there. Articulation, awesome. Now it has 2 onboard illuminators, and you can turn them on one at a time. I believe this one turned on first and this one, for whatever that's worth. They're very bright. I don't want to go too much into them, but they're great. They function awesome. Keep in mind, I've been using a PVS 14 for 12 years, more than 12 years, to include a personal one, and it's just, I don't know why they even bother putting it on there other than signaling someone else that you're there. These are actually useful. The illuminators on this, in fact, if you're doing something up close, you really just need the one. And so I would say that it actually is helpful. I'm glad they have them on there. I like the 2. I do run my helmet an SNS mounted Surefire Vampire, so at the end of the day I do have that, but you don't always need all the lumens, and as dim as that can go, just using one of these is going to be dimmer, so more manageable in terms of light. So really love that feature. So the configuration, it's very important, and it's another reason why, granted I'm looking at it on paper, that I went with this. So you can basically change out the entire setup, and some of the components don't exist yet, but they're in the works. So battery panel, don't like it. You basically remove a couple screws, and then you have a plug-in setup for, I'm blanking on the name, but so you can put the battery pack on your helmet and plug in the cord. Have more battery juice. Awesome. That's pretty mission configurable. Now, you've also got the ability to turn these into monoculars. Fantastic. And they're going to have some other options coming down the line. Even if you don't want to use dovetail, you want to go a different route. There it is. Again, you can change these up. So I'm a big fan of modularity, but only when it's not in the way. So an example would be Molly, right? Which, very modular. In fact, it has it in the name, technically. Molly is bulky and adds weight. So while it's nice that it's modular, I've actually fairly recently gone back to a chest rig that was no Molly because it just more weight in the front, pulling you over, all that, causing problems. It wasn't worth the modularity for the downside. Whereas this, there's nothing in the way. It's together. This is how it is. And if I don't want that, I can get out a toolkit and I can change that. But I'm not having to deal with anything sure I could think of other examples of what I'm talking about. I'm also sure you understand what I'm referring to. So, big fan of that as well. One thing I forgot to mention with the articulation is it is auto off, which is just a fantastic feature, frankly. Yeah, not much else to say about it. I see why some people don't care for it. Again, in terms of reliability, I don't think it's a problem. So I think it offers way more good than even a chance at bad. So getting into the gripes, I really just have two when you boil it down. One, and actually using it tonight earlier before this video, maybe it's not a gripe, but like there's no way, or at least I didn't receive with this a way to captivate the battery cap. So basically, once I unscrew it, it's free. That is a potential problem, unlikely, but it is there. I would kind of be interested in something to retain it, but again, that's an easy fix. It's a gripe. I still love these things. Now getting into a little more serious one, the knob. I don't like night vision that uses a knob to turn on, and this one feels a little loose. Now I know that oftentimes that's engineered on purpose, like an aim-point comp M4, which again I have years of experience with, and the comp M5. There's a purpose disconnect because it prevents certain bumping and other things by putting a little play in the line to include damage or things like that. It gives it a little more engineered resistance. And so maybe that's what they did with this. I forgot to ask them about it when I talked to them on the phone. I'm sure I'll talk to them again, but I don't care for that. And also, any knob I've ever seen on any night vision is subject to being snapped off or broken. I have seen it. Fortunately, I haven't done it myself. It's always a possibility. Now, with my knowledge of manufacturing and engineering, I know that if they replace this with a button, like I would prefer, like on RNVG or RNVGAs or the Pano ones, whatever. Point is that I know if they put a button here, alright, so this knob is how you turn them on, if you keep turning, you turn on the first onboard illuminator, keep turning, you turn on the second one as well. So this knob actually accomplishes a lot for being one little thing. So if this became a button, you'd probably press to turn it on. And then if you were to have onboard illuminators, which I would like to have, considering they're like this, I could definitely not need them if they're like PVS 14s. But, you know, okay, well, I'd kind of like to have them on there. Well, there's not really any real estate to add another device like a button to the illuminators, unless you got rid of the manual gain, which I actually like manual gain. I don't know that I have to have it, but if given a preference, I would like it. So, in the effort to keep the footprint small, to keep the weight light and all that, I definitely see why they did it that way, and I can appreciate that. And again, that's why this is kind of a gripe or complaint, and it's really barely that, since I have a decent level of understanding of why this is how it is. It's just so simple and so reduced in footprint and so light. Again, I think I'm willing to accept that change. Now, someone might say, well, you're just justifying it, or blah, 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 blah. I think I've explained pretty well kind of where I'm at with this. Now, if it was as heavy as DT and VS's and had the same footprint, then no, I'd kind of be less accepting of that change. Now, also, time will tell how this switch does. I mean, I'm going to be away for 3 weeks doing Army stuff. A lot of it at night. So, we're going to be seeing what these things are really going to do. So we will see for sure, probably during those 3 weeks, if that switch is an actual failure point or not. And we may also get a look at Low Light Innovation's warranty, or we won't. So that's enough about that, but that is kind of my only concern / gripe / complaint / thing I'm willing to deal with. So getting into forward thinking, so far I really do love these things. I think they're fantastic. I will say that one of these, so you can adjust the tension on the articulation, and one of them kind of got a little loose, so I tightened it, and that's fine. Some things that come like this, precision engineered or not, sometimes something's just loose. A little more judgmental if it's a gun or something, especially depending on the part, but you know, no one wants to get like an MCX with a loose screw on the rail or something. But it didn't come that way, it just kind of worked itself that way, but if it wasn't tight enough, I can see that. So my point is that, as I've been talking about how much uses you're going to see, not to mention my personal use on the range in my free time, but we'll see if it keeps loosening itself or not. tighten kind of both sides to right where I want them. And so we will see if that remains and stays an issue or isn't an issue or whatever. Last thing I'll end with is they really just feel light. I actually don't even use the counterweight very much. Like when I go out in my backyard with my dog, I'm kind of messing with these, and like I'll actually play fetch in the dark with my dog with dive shit on. Sometimes shirtless and shorts and flip-flops, so my neighbors really love me. But anyway, it doesn't really fatigue me too much. Now for longer operation, yeah, I'm going to throw some counterweight on there just to help everything balance out to make sure. But again, the weight is really pleasant and easy to deal with. So I'd say overall that's really all I have. I hope you're kind of liking these initial impressions videos. I'm trying to keep them short. It's kind of amazing how much detail and notes I can work in a short amount of time and just using something. Again, sorry for lack of footage. I kind of did my best to throw some stuff together. But at the end of the day, over time, there will be more footage, and by my final review, there should be a lot of footage. So, again, wanted to get this thing out early on, not a lot of videos on it, really in terms of information. Don't really expect to make a lot of money off YouTube, but really just want to get some relevant information out there for people looking at the system. So, this has been James Donaldson with the Contemporary Gentleman. Until next time, keep your composure.